First of all, thank you all so much for the invitation to have us here. We are really excited to have this conversation. Sivan and I joke that we could sit up here and talk with each other probably for about, I don't know, hours, but we will not do that to y'all. We will be up here for a couple of minutes and then open it up for questions. So I want to make sure that you all know that there will be time to ask us questions. We are so excited to be here because this is a time in our country where so many people may feel like they may not have a voice now, and people may feel like they may not have power. And we know that there is a lot of voice and power in this room. So our goal primarily is to encourage you to utilize your voice and your power, especially at a time like now when our communities need us. So Sivan, as we are sitting here, let's just get started with, tell us about your path, because you are a medical doctor, and yet now you're running a phenomenal organization that's focused on youth. So tell us a little bit about your path.
Sure. Thank you. So I just want to echo Tiffany's words about why we're both really honored to be here. And for me, having a conversation with Tiffany is a lot of fun because she's great, and I think together we both follow the same kind of ideals, though different paths. So everybody's journey is different. And if you think about that, and think about your own personal journey, where you are now, where you've been, and maybe where you want to go. And I think that sometimes it's really important to take stock of where you are and where you want to go. And so for me personally, I was a pediatrician for many years. And I don't want to say exactly how many, because some of my students are in the room and they'll figure out how old I am. But I loved being a pediatrician, loved everything about it. But what I loved the most was watching families grow and talking to them about the future and empowering both parents and young people. And I was also always doing a lot of volunteer work on the side in equity and education. And I came to my own personal reckoning that really happened post George Floyd's murder and the COVID pandemic, and the intersection of those two things, and watching which of my patient population was most affected. I had kids who were fine and learning in big homes and garages and hiring teachers to help them. And then I had 5 and 6-year-olds who were home alone because their parents had to work and they were trying to figure it out with no internet. And so I made a personal decision that I wanted to try and have impact on a different scale, and left a practice that I loved in a city that I was very happy with in Atlanta, and made a joint move with my husband to Connecticut, and was really, knew I was going to do nonprofit work, wasn't sure where or how, when I realized Hartford was one of the poorest cities and one of the richest states in the country. I realized I'd figure out what I wanted to do, and I'm very blessed to be president of Hartford Promise now. In just a quick two seconds of what we do. So we are a large-scale college scholarship and support program for young people from Hartford. We provide what has been $20,000 scholarships, thanks to the blessing of the Hartford Foundation. This year it became $100,000 scholarships to all students from Hartford. So I have currently about 450 college students in schools around the country. And we help support them to not just go to college, but to graduate from college, and then hopefully to land jobs in the fields they want to. So feel incredibly blessed. Being here is really important because scholarship, healthcare, health ties to everything that affects us all. So that's my personal, and the stop to think about what it is you want to do. But Tiffany, you have your own story, and the work you're doing is hugely important. So I think it's really would be great if you would share that.
Well, first of all, I want to commend you for really modeling part of what tonight is about, and that's leading with purpose, because you basically found your purpose and you continue to lead. So I just want to first thank you for your leadership here in the state, so thank you, Sivan, for that. I am a person who has, as many of you in this room are going to have a non-traditional path to where I have gotten, and similar to you, Sivan. But when I think about my entire career, it was grounded in purpose, and primarily it was grounded around the passing of my cousin. So I had a cousin who was in Atlanta. He was a day worker, and in Georgia, as it still is, did not have access to health care coverage. He was in and out of the emergency room at a federally qualified health center, attempting to get care for what he thought was just regular stomach issues. As a 34-year-old black man in Georgia, he was ignored. They told him everything. They told him he had salmonella. They told him that it was because he was eating fast food, everything. It took us months to get him connected with the health center through a friend, and by the time he was connected with health, he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. Unfortunately, my cousin only lived 7 months after his diagnosis and passed away at 35 years old. So when this happened, ironically, when I got the call from him that he called me to tell me he had colon cancer, I was standing in the federally qualified health center as an intern, and because I was at Emory, so I was interning in that federally qualified health center, and I was like, this system is broken. My goal was to learn everything I could about the system in order to figure out how to dismantle it and break it in any way that I could. So I ended up becoming a healthcare consultant, hospital consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then I went on and I worked at Aetna in corporate strategy, and I was really privileged to find the role at the Connecticut Health Foundation. Our organization is focused explicitly on health equity for people of color in our state. We do so by policy and administrative changes. We work with everyone. We work with health systems, we work with legislators, we work with community-based organizations, and our goal is to change the system. I tie that to why did I take my career path? And I was just speaking to a young person here, and I said, you've got to learn the language that everyone speaks so you can translate it for change. And that was my goal. When I sit with a healthcare administrator, I understand how they're thinking, so I'm trying to speak in their language for change. When I speak with legislators, I get them, so I'm speaking their language for change. But I would suggest along the way, you ground yourself in why are you going to wake up every morning? What is going to motivate you? Because no matter what you do, the work is hard. And if you're not grounded, you will lose your steam. And so even on my hardest days, I'm constantly thinking about my cousin Lawrence, because I don't want any family in Connecticut to have to experience what we did experience. And even if, I'm not gonna go into it, but even if you look at our strategic plan as an organization, it directly aligns with his entire experience and the desire for us to create policies around change. And that is a lot about leading with purpose and finding a voice for change.
Thank you. Wow.
So, as we continue, Sivan is like,
I've known a lot about Tiffany. I didn't know that story, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Grounding in purpose. So as we talk about the next generation, what are you seeing in your students, Sivan, and especially around changing the landscape? What are you encouraging them about the power of their voice?
Sure. What gives me hope every day is young people, right? Is a conviction that they have that they want to make change. The young people that I work with from Hartford, but others that I've met throughout Connecticut, are very dedicated to their community, is what I've found. And honestly, they're pretty pissed off at our generation for not having made enough change. And so, but right now is a very scary time for them. I think the federal landscape that we all recognize, the fear of what's going to be taken away, what is being taken away is college access, with the Supreme Court ruling about affirmative action, with threats towards Pell Grant funding, now with the taking away of Pell extra loans for graduate students. All of these things are challenging and scary, but I continue to remind them, and I think they see it, that change can happen in multiple ways, and so the small things they do, and the big things, like are they registered to vote, and are they voting, right, is the start of their voice. But also, I think where they get hope is from folks here in the room and others like them who are ahead of them, and remember to pull them back with them, because our young people can't be what they can't see. And when they start out and they're afraid or they feel like they are the only, we've all been the only, right? But how are we looking at that and bringing up the people behind us, with us, shining their light, helping them, is an enormous power that we all have that I don't think we recognize enough. And one of the things I will complain about with Connecticut, Hartford has been incredibly welcoming, and Connecticut has been in these 3 years, but it is such a siloed state. And that has to stop. Like, we can't, as a community, be making change if we're worried about one nonprofit is doing this, and does that threaten me, and we're talking about the same people. And so that would be my other thing, to work together more. Hartford Healthcare does great things, and so does New Haven Health, right? But what can we be doing together for community, I think, is the only way we will move forward. But in your case, you're doing this work right now all the time, and you're an organization that is focused on health equity for people of color. When you look at this federal landscape now, what's keeping you up at night? What isn't keeping you up at night? It's probably a better.
So the better question is, am I sleeping? That's the better question, which is not a lot. I was just speaking with a commissioner last night, and we were having this conversation. And this has been one of the hardest moments I've had in the work that I've done across my entire career. Because we are in a federal landscape, and we have a federal government that just doesn't care. And it is so hard when nobody is leading with compassion or thought for people who are already hurting. And the idea is to make them hurt more. And so that is what is making this moment exceptionally challenging, because we know that there are people who are going to be hurt, and that's hard to live with. And so I will say that that is why I'm not sleeping, why I get a little tiny bit of rest every once in a while, is because we are in a state that is committed to minimize the harm. And I work and speak with leaders every day, and we are fortunate that we are in a state that's going to do our best to not feel as much of the impacts that some other states might feel, but we're going to feel it. Our people are going to lose. But one of the things that I'm holding on to, or a couple of things, are beyond the fact that we have a state that's committed and leaders who are committed, and some of the leaders in the room, like Valerie and others, who are committed to keeping us whole. This is a time to get creative. I'm really hopeful. I'm looking at all the younger folks in the room. My braids are hiding my gray hair, which is a blessing. But I'm looking at those that don't have gray hair in the room to help us in getting innovative. I hate to use this terminology, but it's kind of where we are. I keep mentioning to my staff, we can't lose this tragedy. And what I mean by that is that we can't pretend like our system wasn't broken already. Our system was already broken, so we can't pretend like it wasn't broken. But this is a time when everybody's going to feel the pain. Meaning that our health systems are going to feel the pain. Our people are going to feel the pain. This is the time we are all going to feel the pain. So how can we get creative about improving our broken system when it's about to be totally decimated? And that is what we are constantly thinking about as an organization. I hope that as you all continue in your work, even as an organization, as a collective, you can bring forth some ideas on how we don't lose this moment to rebuild our system. Again, it was already broken. So let's rebuild it in a lot of ways. The other thing that we need to continuously consider and remember, that we also have an opportunity to make sure that our communities don't forget that there is power already in the community. This is a time that we can bring folks together in ways that we can't even imagine. So people are trying to associate this time to COVID. Now, I do call this political COVID. We are in political COVID. However, there are communities that are being specifically attacked. How do we take this moment to build up, empower our communities now so that they feel like they can fight and do the best that they possibly can at this time? How can we support them to do that? How can we support their voices? How can we support them with dollars? How can we support them with the tools necessary? Because everyone has a voice, and I've seen it. It's just a lot of times that we don't ask. And we need to continue to ask our communities what they need at a time when they need us the most.
So, to piggyback on the voice of community and the voice of people here, it's also understanding trust, right? So community trust is hugely important. Trust amongst us is important. I was having a discussion with one of my former colleagues, a pediatrician, about vaccines, right? Now, as some vaccines are, quote, not recommended, et cetera, or not required, were patients pulling back. And what she said is, her black patients, she's a black woman and most of our population was black, trusted her more than they trusted the federal word that they were hearing, right? And so amongst this room and in our community are so many educators and community healthcare workers and educators. And that voice is hugely important right now when facts are no longer facts and where people don't know where they're getting their information from. We have to be a trusted source. And so that's power in that. Every individual person that you affect has a family and multiple ripples of what we can all do. So when we talk about our work at Harvard Promise, it's the micro level of every individual student and how can we help them and get them there. But it is the macro level of systems too. And how are we changing that? How are we working with public school systems, universities, careers, etc. But remembering our voices that same way, right? It is the micro and the macro, and we have to look at things in that way. And I think this is a pendulum. My husband and I talk about this all the time, right? And as a country, we have gotten through dark times. This is a really dark time, but we can't just bury our head and say we'll wake up one day and it'll be better. It's not going to be unless we continue to keep that groundswell going. We did want to take a few minutes for if folks had questions about anything. Questions or comments, I guess.
If you have any questions, you can line up either on this side for this room, on this side of the room, or on the opposite side for this side of the room. So come on up if you have any questions for these wonderful ladies.
I think I can project. So, it's funny because as a person, I'm relatively soft-spoken. I said to myself, well, you know what, it's a new day. But it's not a new day, it's actually that time, and I need to grab the mic. Thank you, ladies, for your words of wisdom. My name is Lavelle Williams. I serve as the Public Policy and Advocacy Co-Chair along with Akiwa Amariagbe. She couldn't be here tonight, but we serve in that capacity for N.A.H.S.E. I also serve at Hartford Healthcare. I use the term serve, but it is an act of service in many ways because Hartford Healthcare is very intentional about putting people first in the human experience area. That's where I work. My question is in regards to the comment that Dr. Hines made around silos, being siloed in the state of Connecticut. My question is, would you mind talking a little bit about the barriers that exist that are creating those silos and what we as individual professionals can do to help combat the silos so that we can be more connected? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And this is an outsider from Connecticut perspective, right? But I was shocked that in a state of the size of Connecticut, for example, that there were 14 separate community foundations. That there are, what's the number? How many towns with?
169.
Thank you, 169 towns with separate governance and police and fire, etc. We're not going to change some of those things, right, as far as how the state is set up. But it is, to me, to stop thinking about Hartford versus New Haven versus Bridgeport, but what is a state? What are those same issues? Because many are similar, and how can we work together? What has one place learned that they could share with other people, and can we be listening to what others have to say and that expertise and take that in? I think that is the way I see the ability to move forward and to not be so territorial for a small state.
We're a statewide organization, so are in all of these areas and towns. I would say, first of all, we are in a moment where I don't think that we're going to have a choice but to work with one another. And again, I feel like we need to continue to monopolize off of this moment to just get folks thinking about how to work together. And there are initiatives and ways that we can do that more purposefully. And that's at the big state level, but I think for you all in this room, you know each other. You have built trust with each other. There is nothing wrong with you all sharing your good work amongst each other and figuring out ways to get your health systems to actually work together. There's no reason that you should not feel empowered to do that. And if they say that they can't afford it, just call me if it's health related. Seriously, we would love to see, and we do encourage our systems to work together, and they have in many ways. And sometimes it is led by having a grant that propels them. But you all should figure out ways that you can work together and come up with projects and initiatives. And that will go a long way.
Thank you. My name is Olivia Taylor. I just concluded my administrative internship at Hartford Healthcare today. In the spirit of working together, what is the best way as a young person for me to get involved in both of you guys' organizations?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go first? Okay.
I would say, first of all, don't lose any opportunities. You have some amazing leaders sitting in this room. I already called out Valerie, Jeff is here, and there are some amazing leaders in this room. For the young folks, I would say, don't be afraid, number one, to get our information. Too often people walk away and they don't get folks' information. You all don't understand how happy we are to talk with you all, because I was just saying, we were sitting at the table and another fellow, and I was like, I'm just gonna make you come and hang out with me because I need your energy. I need your joy, because sometimes we get so bogged down in this work that it is just fun for us just to have these conversations and to be able to mentor. There's a lot of folks in this room. So I would say number one, it's getting involved in any of our organizations. The first step is reaching out. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask. And anybody knows that I have never turned down a young person. I might turn down some other people, but I have never turned down a young person to have coffee, to have lunch, and that's the note. And so that's just advice overall. And then from there, I'm sure you'll learn about a lot of ways that you can just get involved around the state. But I just want to say that in general, as you're going throughout your career, don't be afraid to ask for our contact information.
And as my students will tell you, be careful what you ask or volunteer for, because I will definitely find something for you to do. But young people need, again, to see others who have progressed and figure out what was your pathway, what knowledge do you have. So it's remembering that you do have a lot to share with other people. So yeah, Tiffany's right, reach out.
And this would just be our last question.
Dr. Hines and Ms. Donelson, thank you so much for speaking with us today. My name is Cameron Moraski. I am one of Hartford Healthcare's 10 administrative fellows. And thank you. And as I thank you, I wanted to highlight the conviction, sincerity, and accountability in the words that you're speaking. They hold weight, and we will carry these words with us when we return to our cohorts and speak with our peers. So my question for you is, for me as an emerging healthcare professional, and when I'm surrounded by so many, what is the message that you would like me to carry back to my peers of my cohort from this conversation tonight in order to have an impact and make change?
That we need you, number one, right? That your voice matters. To Tiffany's point, we need your innovation. And that, I won't say don't get discouraged, because we all get discouraged, but you can't quit, right? So ground yourself in those convictions, and remember to share, again, with those who come behind you, which might just be somebody who's a year younger than you, or it might be the 10-year-old who needs to see what you can be. But to have 10 administrative, that's wonderful, because that's hope for me, for, again, I will always still be a physician, and will always view everything through the impact that healthcare has. It all ties together: healthcare, education, life, and joy.
Stay steady, stay strong, stay true to who you are and what you believe, and don't be afraid. And when in doubt, when there is a little bit of fear, call on folks like us to remind you that you shouldn't be afraid, and this is not a moment for fear. We need everyone, so stay steady and keep moving.
Thank you both for your wonderful words. You can stay seated for a little moment. Miriam's going to come up as I summarize. So I wanted to point out three main themes I heard today in charting your new healthcare journey. First, I heard you speaking about grounding your purpose in your work. Be able to know what your why is within healthcare, your why for what you do, why you do what you do every day. We are in a forever changing landscape, and it's not going to stop changing. So how do we get in front of that change? How do we continue to work with our systems, our FQHCs, our communities, with each other, look to your left and your right in these moments and in these spaces, to be able to grow and develop ourselves within our communities. Also, find what gives you hope. Be each other's hope. There's so many things going on in the world, but what is the pieces of light that you see each and every day that gives you encouragement? Lastly, what are we doing together, and how are we empowering our communities? How are we giving back to those and being mentors to others that can see us in that light? So from one Georgia native to two others, I want to say thank you so much. Georgia, thank you so much for your time. And we would like to present these two gifts for the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for this wonderful panel presentation.
Thank you.
We are now going to move to an incredibly special moment within our evening, where we will award our scholarships.